Hello, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Christabel, the original Power Ranger princess, but on this channel, I am Princess Power Ranger. So, before I even get into the video, I just want to thank everyone who has subscribed, everyone who signed on, everyone who's a part of this community. Now, what I'm going to talk about, in no way am I trying to hurt or offend anyone. In no way am I trying to even trigger any sort of response from anyone. I just think this is how I've personally felt for the longest time. And what I want you to know before I say anything else is how I view myself, how I view my identity, does not have to be your truth. I'm not trying to hurt or offend anyone by the things that I'm saying. It honestly is just the way that I personally see the world. Personally, so I transitioned almost 11 years ago, to be honest, socially transitioned. But I was in therapy to prepare to transition for a year and a half. So this journey started like in 2011 realistically. So it's been a long time in the making. And I've gone through a lot of things. You know, I've bumped my head a couple of times, risked my life, and I've dealt with so many things from surgery, transphobia, being in the workplace, men who didn't know I was transgender, girls who didn't know I was transgender. All of that. I went through the process of losing my male privilege and moving into an undesignated or an unknown space, you know what I mean? And having to forge out my own type of womanhood. I've literally, when I say I've done it all and seen so much, I really, truly have. And in the years that I have, been in college and worked, I've also worked in advocacy. I was in NGOs working for the LGBTQ plus community as a gender and minority officer. I've worked intensively with the community. So believe me when I say this, I am proud of being a transgender woman. And because I'm proud of being a transgender woman, I am honest with myself, and I know that as a transgender woman, I am not a woman. I really am not. Now, before you have a reaction or you get all upset and jump on the comments or in the comments or whatever, there's a reason I say this. I think us as transgender women who have recently transitioned or transitioned years ago, I think so many of us have been so desperate for the rest of society to validate us and to see our femininity and to acknowledge us as women that we have forgotten a fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth is that there is beauty in being transgender. There is great beauty in there is great beauty in you being exactly what you are and not trying to force yourself to be something that you are not. I identify solely as a trans woman. I identify solely as a trans woman because I understand that, when I was born, I was automatically given male privilege. whether or not I wanted it. By default, people around me, the doctor, my parents, aunts and uncles, everybody treated me as a boy and had expectations of me to be a boy. So how I was raised was I was given a lot of things that genetic boys are given, which is, yes, genetic boys are often coddled by their grandparents over their cousins that are genetic females. Yes, there is a preference, especially in African culture, for genetic boys. Yes, femicide does exist. Yes, there are so many children, um, baby girls, genetic baby girls that are born in Africa, India, throughout the Middle East that suffer simply for being born female. And I acknowledge and I understand that because I was born male, because I was realistically born male, it meant that I'd be given certain privileges in life. Now, as a transgender woman, I'm someone who I believed I was female. I believed I was a little girl. It had to be my mom who was the one who told me that no, you were born a boy and you have to start acting like a boy. She was the one who broke the news. And yes, I became depressed. Yes, I wanted to unearth myself since I was like 5 years old. Yes, I felt trapped. That is all true. And I still need to acknowledge that because I had this experience, that experience of feeling trapped in your body, of feeling like you should have been born in a different gender or a different body, that is not the lived experience of most women. Can we just be real about that? Most genetic women, when they are born, most, as a lot of people like to say or use the word cisgender, I've taken that word out of my vocabulary because women don't like it. Most women don't have that experience. Their experiences are unique and different. Our experiences are unique and different. I'm not trying to diminish the transgender experience because the transgender experience carries so much beauty. I fought for my womanhood in a way that's very different to how genetic women have to go through life. The challenges that I face as a transgender woman are very, very unique to me. Yes, I, as a transgender woman, have a lot of similarities to a genetic woman. When I walk down the street, people think I was born female. And that's what I want. I mean, look, there's no way that I could change time and make myself be born female. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to. Because the experience that I have as a trans woman has been so unique and it's shaped who I, Christabel, Princess Power Ranger, am. So I can stand in who and what I am and look at my fellow sister who was born genetically female, see her struggles, acknowledge her pain, understand that what she has is something that I don't have, and that's okay. And what I have is something that she doesn't have, and that's also okay. It's important, I think, for us as trans women just to acknowledge this. I think when I was younger, I used to be super, super liberal. I was damn near a social justice warrior. And I remember like people telling me that, you are a real woman, you are more of a woman, this, that, and the other. And it's interesting because that never sat well with me. It never sat well with me. When guys would try to hit on me and be like, oh, you're trans and you're a better version of a woman, or when trans girls would try and bash women, all I would think in my head, I remember this one time in yeah, this was in college. There was this trans girl who I first knew as a gay guy, and he had been hella misogynistic. Hella, he was actually, he hated specifically black women. He used to bash black women only to turn around to put on a skirt and want to be called a black woman himself. Now, I know I've just massively, misgendered this person, but they were such a vile person and they were so misogynistic that, like, it's one of those things where they were so nasty that, and they didn't even do femininity in the right way, if I had to be 100% honest. But this video is not about that person, but rather to illustrate that there's so many times and there's so many instances where within liberal spaces, the disrespect of biological women is freely, opened and discussed. And this always was uncomfortable for me because I was raised by a single mom. My dad passed away when I was like about to turn 4. And a lot of the women in my family, the biological women in my family, like my aunts, my grandmother, a lot of my cousins, I witnessed their struggles. I witnessed their accomplishments. I saw everything that they went through, and I was always like a supporter in the sidelines, looking to them for inspiration, for hope, and knowing how strong and powerful they were. So for someone to turn around and say that they were lesser, or their vaginal, their pussies stank like fish, and this, that, and the other, and all of these disparaging things, it would always kind of sit unwell with me because I thought, if I had been born just a regular schmegular straight hetero cisgender, if you want to, male, I would have never been okay with that level of sexism. Not today, not yesterday, and not ever. So it's, I don't know if that's the rain. It's monsoon season here in Thailand. But anyways, back to my point. There was so much misogyny that went around. Now I understand, I mean, not, yeah, there was so much misogyny that went around. There was so much misogynoir that went around LGBTQ plus spaces. It was unsettling. I understand where it comes from. I understand that a lot of gay men, a lot of transgender women have felt bullied, victimized by, biological women. I get it. I've been beat up. I've been thrown downstairs. I've been stabbed. All of it, girl. All of it. I've experienced it all. But at the same time, like, I understand that as human beings, we're varied. And the people who hurt me are not a reflection of all, of all of that demographic. So I was never comfortable with the misogyny within LGBTQ plus spaces. Let's be real. I mean, we've all seen a gay guy slap a woman. We've all seen it. We've all heard very hurt and emotionally dysregulated trans people go off on genetic women. And there's a level of acceptance. I get where the acceptance comes from because I think so many within the LGBTQ plus space are traumatized and hurt by society, but allowing misogyny to exist in LGBTQ plus spaces is going to cause more harm than it's going to hurt us more than anything else. So, hold on, I just want to sorry for that. So, the second point that I really wanted to make or touch upon is the fact that for me as a transgender woman, if I have to be 100% real with you guys, I actually looked towards women, biological women, as inspiration in my transition. I sought out female relationships for that very purpose. You know, I saw so many of my cousins and friends as style icons. And the reason that I was able to successfully transition is because I allowed women to teach me what femininity was. I didn't walk into spaces and demand that I be the only one speaking and that only my pain and my trauma be heard. No, baby, I walked up in there and I took notes. Like, I watched all of my friends and I examined them. And that's how I was able to sort of like master my femininity. People ask me, you know, how did I work on my voice? I shut up and I listened to women talk. That's how I worked on my voice. I shut up and I listened to women talk. People ask me, how did I work on my walk or mannerisms and things like that? I hung out in spaces with females that would accept me. I never tried to diminish them. And I never tried to shame them because I felt inadequate. Let's be real. A big part of femininity, unfortunately, all women go through this. Black women, white women, Hispanic women, Arab women, Muslim women, Jewish women, transgender women, short women, tall women. We all go through this where we feel like if we deviate from, I don't know, the beauty standard, even by a little bit, it can cause distress. A lot of us feel, unfortunately, that when society doesn't validate us or when society doesn't see us as being special or as being beautiful, a lot of us, it can affect our self-esteem. And as a result, we turn on each other. It's very common for women to be pitted against each other. And it's very, very common for women to attack other women. Us as transgender women who've come into the female space, which is femininity, coming into it and attacking women for being women is not going to make us be seen as feminine. It's not going to make anyone use the correct pronouns for us. It's not going to help us pass in society. What it will do is that it causes greater resentment, greater discord between us as transgender women and biological women. And if we're constantly at odds with biological women, um, we will never truly know what it means to we'll never truly know what it means to be a woman, because a huge part of femininity, even if you look at sociology, a huge part of femininity is social interactions. Let's be real. A huge part of it is social interactions. It is how society treats you. Does society treat you as a woman? How do people see you? You know what I mean? This is why so many of us get triggered when we get misgendered. It's because society is not treating us as women. Now, a lot of that comes from transphobia. The majority does come from transphobia. And unfortunately, working your way through the waters of transphobia does break you down. It does destroy your soul. And it does leave you all kinds of depressed. But what I can say as a transgender woman who's lived many, many, many years transitioned, Keep going, keep trying. Despite the transphobia, keep trying to be the best feminine version of yourself. Don't walk into the world trying to fight women and trying to tell the world how you're better than women. You know what I mean? It's not going to make us be accepted. A lot of the discord and a lot of the fighting and a lot of the support that has been lost by the specifically transgender community comes from the fact that us as trans women, we've stepped into femininity with aspects of our male privilege. An aspect of your male privilege is wanting to be the only one who speaks, wanting to be the only voice in the room. Men often walk into spaces and tell everybody else how to behave. Men often walk into spaces and tell women how to behave. Men often walk into spaces and dominate. And it's important for us as transgender women who have essentially left masculinity, who've left the world of being men. It's important for us who truly never were men to not step into femininity with all of that toxicity. Because there's a lot of toxicity that we're bringing into the table. I mean, all you have to do is to go onto TikTok and you'll go through so many emotionally dysregulated young people that are upset because they've experienced transphobia, but are responding to it with severe sexism, severe anger. It's not healthy overall for them. It's not healthy overall for the transgender community. And it's not a cute look. It's not a cute look. Let's be real. Like, I know, like, this video probably sounds very, very transphobic, and it's not intended to be that way. But the reality is, transgender women, a lot of us are M to F. And what that means, transgender women, is that you're moving away from male and you're stepping into female, but you have not been socialized as a female and you still need to walk the steps of transition. So many trans people will literally, start their transition 2 weeks ago and get upset with society when they're not 100% seen or treated as a woman. I know, and I've heard this argument so many times where people talk about how transition or your transition, please excuse the rain, but I've heard like a lot of people talk about how your transition is not a beauty contest, and being transgender is not about being in a beauty contest, this, that, and the other. Unfortunately, the way society is set up is that you are expected to show up as your best self in all situations. And the reality is that as a transgender woman, if you want the rest of society to use the correct pronouns, there has to be some effort from your part. There has to be some effort from your part. Look, at the end of the day, femininity as a whole, women through thousands and thousands of years have been, unfortunately, forced to look presentable. They have been. Women throughout history have been forced to do things to themselves, to make themselves fit into a societal standard. Women often, they shave their legs, which is unnatural. Women will, if they have a little bit of a unibrow, will remove that. They'll dye their hair. They'll put on makeup. All of these things women do because that essentially is a huge part of femininity. And many women, believe it or not, they're not necessarily doing it because they want to be beautiful or because they want to win some beauty contest. They're doing it because society requires a level of compliance. I hate to say it, but the world we live in, unfortunately, is a very misogynistic world, and it requires a level of compliance. And women for centuries and centuries have complied in terms of their appearance. So when we as transgender women refuse to shave our beards and then want to get upset when people misgender us, it's because you're not complying, sweetheart. And because you're not complying, society does not understand or know how to react or respond to you. Or at worst, some people actively go out of their way to be horrible towards you. Now, I know what I've said probably triggered so many trans women, and I understand that so many of us, the reason we cannot look feminine is because we can't afford surgery, and it doesn't matter how good our makeup is or how good the wig is, people still clock us. I will say, based on my experience and from what I've seen through working with so many trans women in NGOs and within different communities throughout South Africa and in Thailand. Okay, I'm not in an NGO in Thailand, but through working with so many trans women, what I can say is that the early stages of transition, yes, are difficult. And yes, it's very, very triggering. But when you do put in effort, people that are polite, people that are civil, will try to make an effort. There will be some sort of collective effort from their part. But when you jump back and forth from masculinity to femininity, which is absolutely your right, people aren't going to jump back and forth with their pronouns. They're going to pick one and keep you at that. Too many people within the trans community are afraid of truly jumping in and transitioning. So they hold on to many aspects of their masculinity. Like they'll still work a job as a man, but then in society, dress as a woman, be in dresses and skirts, and not understand why there is difficulty in being able to find acceptance. And the thing is, you've not fully merged, you've not fully clicked the reset button. You are still literally, when you clock in for 8 hours, you bask in male privilege. Then you clock out, think about your idea of what a woman can or should be, and then step into that. And then obviously it's going to take some time before you subconsciously, because femininity is unconscious, unfortunately. A lot of the things women and trans women who've transitioned for many, many years, a lot of the things we do are unconscious. It's just unconscious femininity. And goodness, I've digressed so much, but if you are a person like that, bless, I wish you all the best in your transition, but understand why it's so difficult to fully immerse yourself into the world of femininity and understand that, no, you're not a woman. Even me as a binary trans woman who, I'm fully female aligned. My friendships are predominant, my friendships, except for my one friend, all my friends are female. My politics, everything is literally female identified. My hopes, my dreams. I know that doesn't really make sense for someone who isn't trans, but for me, having transitioned 11 years ago and having to have been trans in college, been trans in jobs, lost jobs because I'm trans, this, that, the other. Having dealt with all of that, after a decade, I can honestly say that I feel fully 100% female aligned, but I'm an ally to women. I'm a transgender ally to women. I see their struggles and I understand my own struggles. You know what I mean? This conversation is so nuanced. It is so nuanced, and there's so much that I could say. There's so many examples that I could give, so many real life examples on how genetic women and trans women are not the same, but they're still valuable and beautiful. But I don't want to make this video super long. I'm going to make a part 2. And in the part 2, I really want to talk, to go in deeper. But before I end this video, I want you to know that you as a trans woman, you're beautiful. You are a beautiful expression of how the masculine has morphed into the feminine. And it's important that you and I as a trans woman understand that in order to truly morph into the feminine, we must stand in full respect of female energy and of women. You know what I mean? I'm going to make my next video. I really want to talk about Miss Netta and why we as transgender women need to gatekeep and protect our image. But again, before I end, the last thing I want to say to any biological women listening, know that I'm, like, I honestly mean this, and this is not just me pandering, but I am an ally. I have so many friends, cousins, people in my life that have supported me and fought for me and put on the cape to support me in my transition. So I don't call myself a feminist, but you better believe I'm a fucking ally to women. Anyways, I love you guys. I hope y'all have an awesome whatever time of the day it is. Bye.